You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. I call to order the January 25th, 2022 meeting of the Narberth Borough Infrastructure Committee. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So the first item of business is to approve minutes from December 2021. Did anybody have any concerns about the minutes or changes? No? Okay.
No, it looks good.
Vote to approve the minutes? Yes? Okay, we're approving the minutes. Okay, minutes are approved. So the first item for discussion, information item for discussion, is about the Hafford Avenue Lakewood Road Borough Welcome sign. You may have seen in the packet that we received an email from I think a member of the community, although he doesn't actually say he was there, but do you want to speak to that or do you want me to just summarize it?
Sure, I'll speak to it. Yeah, absolutely. So as Michelle mentioned, we received an email from someone who mentioned the current condition of the sign welcoming you to Narberth that is above the tunnel when you come in from Wynwood Avenue. And the person pointed out that a family member had originally installed that sign and offered to help refurbish it and provided some background on his artistic background. I think that, reviewing that offer, my recommendation to the committee is I think at some point, I've mentioned in other occasions, we need to talk about wayfinding in the borough. And while I'm very grateful for this person's offer to take care of it, I would recommend that we just put it on hold for the moment, pending any further consideration of borough wayfinding. I also would say that while I'm also grateful for the offer, and I'm glad to work with community members and volunteers, I don't know if it would be a project that's appropriate for a volunteer to be involved with, given just potential liability issues and things like that. So, so there's just my thoughts for the committee to consider on that item.
Did both of you have a chance to look at that in the packet? Do you have any thoughts or opinions about that?
Neighbors have mentioned to me that they'd like to see the sign refurbished in some way. So, and here we have an artisan family. I personally would like to entertain it. I hear the concerns, but in terms of liability, I wonder if maybe it's just the installation. If the installation could be done by borough staff. That's just my sense. I don't know how other people feel. I like the idea of a homegrown kind of welcoming sign that's very nervous, as opposed to like a professional wayfinding, that might be part of a larger wayfinding program for the whole borough that would have maybe more of a generic look from a sign making company. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I like that idea as well, but I think that's also compatible with the concept of putting it on hold.
Okay.
Like for now, until we have a wayfinding sort of plan. I'm not sure about whether borough staff can readily replace that sign from above without permission from Amtrak SEPTA, which sometimes can create new problems where they just say, oh no, you can't have that sign there at all, or blocking traffic, plus they're pretty busy. So I was kind of going to say, it's nice to have this, and I think we should give a polite response and say, thank you. We may be looking at updating the sign in the future, and then maybe we can have like a public art, at that point in time, we could solicit some kind of, just generally members of the public and make a choice about, somebody replacing, I don't know. But also, I just thought one of the things in the letter that was a request is that if we do replace that sign, whether, this particular person creates a new one or not, the family would like to be considered, but if we need to take that down at some point to have us offer that they can come pick it up. So I just want to make sure we have contact information. When we respond that, so that if we do remove that sign in the future, for whatever reason, they have the option to come and take it home with them if they like it. Also, I just think people have really gotten used to that sign, and I actually think some people would be really sad.
Yeah, but it's definitely tattered and people notice that it looks like
Yeah, it is a little tenor.
Yeah, I do think that Rob makes a great point, and that, I think part of what people love about Narberth is kind of like the charm of it. And I think a sign like that sort of, showcases that charm, as opposed to how, if like fast sign, nothing that's fast signs, there's the nearest sign company. A professional sign company did something that may not have that same allure.
Mhm.
Myra?
It's kind of a new issue to me, so I'll go home with whatever you guys. So,
Okay. By the way, I just wanted to mention, I am going to be, for today, I'm trying to keep up my habit of taking notes during the meeting. Now that I'm leaving the meeting, if that doesn't work, I may call and ask you.
Yeah.
Be the help.
So far, it's working okay, but we'll see if we get distracted, like into an intense conversation, I may forget what I'm doing, but. Okay, so can we agree that maybe Samantha will provide a response that thanks him for his kind offer, that definitely makes sure that he knows that we would like, to make the sign available to the family in the future if it comes down with it. For now, we're going to hold on to it pending the possibility that we would be sort of engage in a broader borough wayfinding project that may in fact involve, soliciting some homegrown art projects. Is that a reasonable way to go? Okay. Thank you. Okay, the second discussion item, I think we can keep pretty brief. Oh, speaking of brief, when we start these meetings, and I forgot to do it, I want to ask if anybody has a hard stop time. We should just make a habit of that.
I have to leave by about 10 after. I know that.
Okay, no, that's fine, because I have a hard stop time at 2 o'clock, so that's actually particularly hard. So we're going to whip through this. I don't think we have a huge amount, which outdoor dining. At our last meeting, we considered the two sort of options that Samantha had presented to us. One was more of like a generic barricade that could have a cover put on it, like those steel barricades, and the other was more of a sort of inherently decorative feature. And the CAR committee and also mentioned it to council at the last meeting, seemed to feel that the inherently decorative barricades are really preferable from an aesthetic point of view. Just the community will appreciate them more, but that does require some kind of guidelines in order to put parameters around it. I know I said I would try to do something before the meeting. I've not had any time, and also thought maybe it's really this would probably, I have a better way maybe to approach it. So Samantha did get from Swarthmore their town center's parklet installation guidelines and application. I also have something that Philadelphia has used for the parklets, and I was thinking, trying to look for one more source. And what I thought I might do is share these with the committee, and also ask Rob if he would like to share this with public health and safety, because there's a definite overlap in terms of making sure that they're not only aesthetic and that they meet the business's needs and that the community likes them, but that they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can put this at our February meeting after we've had a chance to look at these and think about which components of these pre-existing guidelines would make the most sense for Narberth, and then maybe as a committee in February, if we're not too busy, we could put together a recommendation, take it to council, and then move it forward from there. Does that sound reasonable? I mean, we're not in a super tight timeline. We don't have to get them done right now. I'd rather get them done better, right, than just sort of copy and paste something that might not really make sense. There are restrictions in Swarthmore's plan, for example, on things like having a kind of roof, which we already have, and I'm not sure why we want. So I think we need to make sure whatever we adopt that, we make it make sense for Narberth. So that was my intended plan with that. What else is? And are you going to take that through public health and safety too?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you have time to take for the committee to take a look at it?
Yeah, I'm sure we can look at it.
Okay.
So I have 2 questions about it. Do we have a sense of, roughly what it would cost on range of costs on a typical restaurant property that maybe have, well, we know how many feet there are, right? Because it's 2 parking spaces.
Right. So I would say, it's going to vary widely depending on what the actual installation is. Yeah.
But, okay, so that's too hard to ask right now until we narrow it down.
Yeah,
But, okay, so depending on that answer, my next question will be, once we know that, is, what kind of funding split or what funding source I should not prejudge there'll be a split, but just what sort of funding source would we have? Would it be shared between the restaurant owner and us? Or would we try to get money from NIDA? What would that look like? But you can't, I wouldn't even want to ask that question until I knew what it would cost, because it may be de minimis, and then you don't want to go through all that.
I would
extra.
imagine that businesses will have there's no requirement to do this all. It's completely optional. If you want to create a park, that they would have the option to make them as simple and inexpensive
then
or as
maybe-
fancy as they'd like within the guidelines, right? You can gussy it up, or you can just make it a simple lean-to, or something. So, but for costs, Cindy had suggested the possibility of a matching grant program where we might ask NIDA if they could contribute a certain amount of funds, earmark them to match,
Sure.
maybe 1-to-1.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess maybe based on what you just said, I misunderstood something though. We're gonna sort of ban the Jersey barriers that are up there right now and require an upgrade, or are the Jersey barriers still an option?
that's a good question. I mean, I think my standpoint would be, I would be hesitant to have the borough. I mean, if the borough itself is not ever going to be using the barricades, I will admit I would be a little bit more hesitant about the borough putting money into it. I mean, I do recognize that it's a requirement that the borough is putting on the businesses in exchange for having outdoor dining. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that, would this be, okay, I didn't perceive this as being a requirement. I mean, my sense was if you want to stick with Jersey barricades and tables, you can do it. But we'll also give you options for things you can do other than that if you would prefer to put in.
Okay, maybe
But it needs to comply with these guidelines for the sake of safety and
right, but I may have misread this because I really wasn't on council when this was being discussed. But
I don't think anybody's asked this question before.
Yeah,
so
but maybe I think I asked this question as a public comment earlier. I think there's a set of people, myself included, that think maybe the Jersey barriers should go.
Okay.
So I just think that we need some, maybe we need direction from council. I don't know how this works, but we need some direction on that point, because all of a sudden if it becomes required, it kind of changes it a little bit.
Okay, so that's a great preliminary question. What do you think?
I was thinking this might be getting on, public health and safety stuff. If restaurants are going to have outdoor dining, we'd have to look back at the outdoor dining ordinance we just did, but I would imagine that a requirement in there is that you have to have some sort of separation between, your on-street parking you're using and the road. So I do feel there needs to be some kind of, barrier there. I do agree though that from just a quality of life and community kind of aspect that the Jersey barriers are not the way to go. And so I guess I'm thinking while I'm talking here is that we could come up with parameters for restaurants and such if they want to do something on their own. But I think at a bare minimum, the borough should find something that's safe and a little bit more decorative. So maybe the decorative barricade thing, that one sort of option, maybe that's like the bare minimum the borough would provide. Because then we could also reuse those things that we're doing. And then if someone wants to do something fancier than that, then there's this other set of guidelines.
I understand. Now, thank you for explaining that. That makes a lot more sense. Does that sound? I see Swarthmore provided privacy screens on large planters to help define space. And then, for example, said beyond that, you can create additional, semi-permanent amenities within these guidelines. I'm not that we're going to do privacy screens and planters, but it's the same principle.
Exactly.
Right, it's a minimum separation, something better than Jersey barriers.
Right. Something that provides the minimum safe separation that is at least slightly more decorative than Jersey barriers.
So do you want to give some thought to what would provide the minimum safe separation? Maybe we could go with the steel barricades and the covers, or maybe you mentioned something about refugee across.
Oh, the planters.
offered to do pledges? Did they?
That was, I think, before COVID, so it wasn't meant as like a traffic,
Okay,
as a traffic barrier. It was meant purely as decorative, but yeah, but
I understand.
they may be able to do something like that.
That sounds, I guess to me, and Rob, if you feel differently, please let me know. I guess to me, that's where I feel like the conversation for PHS to have is what is this like
Yeah,
minimum kind of thing? And then the conversation for this committee is what is the optional above and beyond guidelines?
Okay,
total sense.
yeah, that's good. Now, just so you know, Michelle, PHS wouldn't meet again. Well, we meet next week, but then we don't, we're the first week. So it's
Well,
a little
just,
out of sync.
yeah, let me know when you're able to, we'll keep in touch about when it goes on the agenda, and we'll follow up after you've done it. Like,
Okay.
we are in this survey, but we can be thinking about it. I feel like that's a reasonable action plan unless anybody else has any questions or thoughts. All right, moving on. We have some potential action items for council. And the first is the updated sidewalk maintenance regulations ordinance. I hope you got the email that, or I think actually Missy may have replaced it in the packet. But I did provide one that has the comments, marginal comments, because I don't think we need to look through for the red lines because they're things that we've already talked about last month and that John has already, acted on. I don't think we need to go through this word for word. There are not a lot of open questions, so there may not really be any, to be honest with you. I think that in section 446-16 permit requirements, fees, and issuance, there's just a bunch of questions, but they really are for staff. So I just want to make sure that we had seen those, that they were flagged appropriately. He's asked some questions about whether we need to add fees to the fee schedule. You saw all of that.
Yeah, and a lot of those fees are covered in the fee schedule, and yeah, we can work that out.
It doesn't require committee action,
Yeah.
but as long as we're going through and make sure that it hasn't slipped through any cracks. So Eric's changes to the standards have been made.
Sidewalk cracks.
That's so correct. Oh, please, I don't think that sounds like that. So the only question I think is open, I don't have an answer to it. Outdoor dining within the right of way, it's section 446-29, and I'm on page, I don't see a page number, whatever. It's in the outdoor dining, subsection 29. And there's two places actually within this section where we talked about if the outdoor dining area abuts a residential zoning district, a 20-foot planted buffer area must be installed along the entire property line adjacent to the abutting district, and the hours of operation of such outdoor dining area shall be limited to 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And this goes back a few months when we discussed this. I'm pretty sure that we agreed as a committee to recommend those hours of operation, that everybody was comfortable with them. But I thought that we may have discussed that the 20-foot planted buffer seemed excessive in the context of how sort of small scale everything is here. And I asked Fred, because he was chairing the committee then, he doesn't really remember what we decided. So I had that open question, and I just wanted to ask if we're comfortable keeping the 20-foot planted buffer in. That's.
So I just have a point of information, because
Yes.
I don't know. So I guess, in thinking about individual properties, this wouldn't be McShay's. That's not, it's way farther than 20 feet across the tracks, right?
Yeah, and it's also, it doesn't abut a residential district.
But it might be Ryan Christopher.
It might be.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get a
That would be an
sense of
example, yeah.
But I mean, are there others? Not really.
Not really. The only current one would be Ryan Christopher's.
Oh, I see, but of course, it's an ordinance.
Right, and that's what happened in the future, yeah.
So 20 foot, that would be the length of 2 parking spaces or more.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that does seem like a lot. I'm trying to picture that with Ryan Christopher.
Yeah, it does seem like a little unclear where along the entire property line adjacent to the abutting district. which, gosh, I wouldn't even know how to make that make sense. Like, Kristen,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I think they already have some plantings at the borders of they're, they border two houses.
Yeah. Would you like, anybody like to propose a modification of that language, or would you like?
It's along the property line. I mean, maybe it's already there.
20 feet wide along the property line? Well, I mean, 20 feet wide is usually pretty much half of most widths of most properties.
20 foot wide? I was thinking like the.
Oh, is that not, you think that's, maybe I'm just.
I'm thinking it's like the length of.
Oh, okay, so not, all right, so we're just, well, it says along the entire property line though. Along the entire property line, which suggests that this must be talking about the width. I think that's why I'm reading it that way.
Okay.
Maybe we should just decide what we think is reasonable and ask John if he'll draft something that captures that, because it's, that,
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
I just wouldn't want to do something that like is immediately Ryan Christopher's is a violation.
right.
mhm.
And that there's no actual way to fix it unless we somehow grandfather.
Yeah, they would be grandfathered,
They would.
but I'd rather not write an ordinance knowing that someone's gonna immediately be in violation of it.
Mhm.
And what's the status of that other, is that, I guess they're closed now, right? The restaurant like down the block from them? It's a restaurant there now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Used to be.
I don't think there's anybody in there right now.
Let's just put, if you have an outdoor dining, if I'm living next to, if I have a property that abuts a restaurant with an outdoor dining area, how much of a planted buffer do I feel was necessary? I think, what's reasonable? 20 feet, I wouldn't really expect 20 feet.
Yeah.
That would be.
I mean, there you can
If
see,
someone's doing something wrong with this,
I don't think it's a planted buffer there. It looks like a fence.
Is that an outdoor dining area? It's not, so.
But this is also, this is from probably, it's from November 2020.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far the outdoor dining area goes.
Okay.
Do we feel like we don't know?
That's a residential.
I mean,
Yeah, I see what you mean. So it actually has to border the patio in the front, the outdoor patio area?
well, I think it's basically saying that if you're putting an outdoor dining area next to someone's house, the whole property line.
Yeah, that's like,
between
that
that residential property and your outdoor dining area needs to have a planted buffer, the whole
I-
length of it, but I don't think 20 feet is reasonable. And it's-
Yeah. Okay, so
Things are as small as not.
You want to say 10 feet or what?
I would go even, I don't know, I would just say the limited hours of operation probably takes care of what we're trying to accomplish here.
lose the planted buffer.
Yeah, I would just say get rid of that
Okay.
altogether.
Okay, that's fine.
So I'm feeling like I'm comfortable leaving a little planted buffer,
Okay.
but just like a minimal one. Because I think it is, if I'm thinking of myself, if I have a house and I'm living next to this, outdoor dining area, I think I'd rather, I really appreciate like some greater, I think asking put 5 feet, a few, 5 feet, a few planters that just, I think that's not asking too much.
Well, it's interesting because it says, how about if it just says a planted buffer along the entire length of the property line? Why does
Right.
20
Well,
feet?
because then the problem is you get into for enforcement,
Yeah.
if there's not an actual number, then we're definitely going to court at that point.
But it says along the entire property line, so aren't they redundant?
No, because someone could, sorry, I have to think in my position of the worst case scenario. Yeah, someone could plant I don't know, just a single row of flowers or something and be there's my planted buffer,
So is it, the
My
20 feet
line
is,
all on the property.
so wouldn't you want to be specifying the depth of it as opposed to the length?
Yeah, that's what that number, that's what
20
that-
feet deep?
That's
Yeah.
the only
That
way,
doesn't make any
that's
sense to me.
the only way you can really read this, because it says along the entire property line. So at a minimum, we want to clarify this. Because
Mhm.
it's just,
20 feet deep is a little bit much.
that's what I'm saying.
Exactly, yeah.
2 feet. There's an extra
Yeah,
foot.
right, 2 feet, yeah.
Okay, 2 foot. There we go. Do I have a second for 2 feet?
2 feet, yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. I think that's fine, but you may,
That's like the size of a planter, you know, that's what
Right.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I will communicate with John to make sure that we talked about this because we were talking
Yeah,
about
right.
a wide planted buffer. If that language was not supposed to convey 20-foot width, which it might not have been, just clarify it.
Good.
Just because it's
Yeah.
not, all right, good enough. I don't think I have any other. The only other question I had for John was physical barriers had to be approved by the Borough Zoning Officer, Police Department, and Fire Department. And I had asked, was that supposed to be and or? And he said it's supposed to be and so as long as that's what you intended, you want all three
Yeah.
bodies, okay, great. Because I wasn't sure if that was a mistake, but it's fine. So, cool, so those are the only actual substantive questions. I have nothing else on this ordinance. We've been through it several times and I'm good sending it off to council.
Yeah.
Putting it on the track to, for passage.
And as usual, someone will give an introduction at council.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, me and John will talk about that.
Yeah, I don't want to make you do that now, but okay, keep going.
All right, so we're ready to move that along, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Next is the skate park rules and operating plan. And we don't have one. And I think, now I thought we were gonna ask, our Parks and Rec board to take a look at that and make recommendations. Is that not?
I believe that conversation did come up that night. I did communicate that to the Parks and Rec chairperson. I know that Jeff Rumblad is here with us today, our director of our public works manager, sorry, Jeff, is with us here today. I know he attended the Parks and Rec meeting last week. My understanding though is they may or may not have actually come up with any specific suggestions.
Yeah, no hours, no plan, no anything.
Is it,
Okay, was there, I had meant to, oh my God, I'm sorry. I had meant to go to that, I apologize for that. So, to that meeting and I just wasn't able to make it. We will have an infrastructure presence at Parks and Rec meetings. Moving forward, that will take further enough. You have to be a liaison. So I apologize that we're putting you on the spot here to ask you that because was the agenda just like too packed or did they address it and decide they don't want to make recommendations or is it for future? I just want to know if we need to do more.
So the agenda for the Parks and Rec meeting was more geared towards our permit fees and everything for the use of our fields.
Mm-hmm.
And then that ate up just about 90% of the time there.
Okay.
but is there a plan or a desire to open the skate park, in the coming months or?
No, I don't, I'm never going to get to a place today. I guess the question is, should we put it on our agenda for February? With the anticipation that the Parks and Rec board is going to visit that and give us recommendations or put it on our agenda with the anticipation that we should move it forward or maybe what I really like to do is just reach out to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, so
I will do that.
why don't I just talk, I can just talk to the chair of Parks and Rec to get clarity
Okay.
on that.
Thank you.
But let me ask a question a different way. Is there like a target date for when it needs to open or it's not, it'll open or it opens?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I guess, if I had to choose between those options, it'll be it opens when it opens. And I am really grateful to the time that Public Works has been spending getting the equipment refurbished. And I think we don't want to open it until we really know what we're doing here.
Yeah, well, that's probably the best way to say it is it'll open when we're ready to safely open it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Okay, so,
I can say something, please?
we usually save public comment for the end.
Oh, okay, fine.
But
That's fine.
I'm not really rigid that way
Yeah.
because we might be rushing out of here. So
Okay.
I'm the
Yeah,
way I am. I'm
No,
happy to entertain public comment right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So, thank you.
You
for
go
coming.
ahead, yeah.
Right now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
But can you just say your name and your
Yeah,
address?
my name is Andres, okay? The last name Peterson. Peterson,
Yes.
last name Peterson. Okay, Andres Peterson.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I want to give you just a little bit of statistics about tennis and skating. Tennis is the second popular sport. First, the number one sport is soccer. Okay, tennis is the second popular sport. Now, United States, 26 million people actively playing tennis. The age for tennis is from 3 till 19 plus, okay? And tennis is a very adaptive sport too. Like, not in the baseball, for example, they're still playing with the these bats and that's heavy balls. Tennis, for example, let's say producing different type of balls for different level players, some smaller courts for the kids, okay? Very adaptive sport, very adaptive. Always you can change, something and people can play in every age, every level. Now skating it's popular sport for the young, what I was reading statistics, from age 16 and 18. These are the age group which is more involved in skating, okay? Now, and it's a number, I don't know, it's like 7 million people in the United States, 7 million maybe altogether, they involved in skating. I don't know the numbers, but I know the numbers for tennis. And tennis is for all life. Everybody can play, any level, any type, any age. And for example, I was talking with Samantha. It exists grants for the tennis courts. For example, USDA, can have grant for the tennis court. Same, it's Pennsylvania. Governor Moore was here. He was seeing these tennis courts, and his secretary said, "Fine, will contact us, and maybe we can help." And another way is a fundraiser. Some people playing tennis here, they say they're ready to, let's say, to do some, for the fundraiser, maybe give some money or something like this, and do some kind of fundraiser for the tennis courts. But it is my comments, and I think it's great to have tennis courts. Maybe they need a repair. I don't know how they cost repair. It's a different companies and different prices. You can always check, especially the people from Northeast. People from Northeast, they have half price for everything. Because in our house, we had the troubles with heater, and the person from here said from Norway it's $12,000, and the person from Northeast says it's $6,000. Exactly the same heater. Okay. Then you can check everything. I know Samantha is very helpful and very always talking with us and with tennis players. And another thing will be very low. This will be very low too, because skating with this metal board, it's very low. I don't know if somebody was skating here, you guys. I have no idea, but I was hearing when was this winter season, when it was COVID, they did this on a basketball court. It was very loud. They jumped over the benches. And let's say language was like F word was involved almost in every sentence for these young men. Okay, for this like 16, 17, 18 years. So these are my comments, and please don't don't take this personally, but we would like to have tennis, and that's my opinion. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you had conversations with Samantha about this, then you realize that putting a skate park pilot program right now is not considered a permanent decision about either keeping tennis there in Narberth Park or possibly putting a tennis and pickleball rapid sports court elsewhere, possibly up in Sabine Avenue or in Narberth Park. We have a lot of options. I think that the feeling was that given that the evaluation of the courts was such that it needed more than a superficial repaving, this was probably the best time to take advantage of that space and try and see what kind of popularity, what kind of use we get from skating and evaluate that. So know that particularly pickleball, I've really been personally very sort of swayed with the how good that is as an all ages sport, and that it's a good use, that could be a good use of our park space. So you're not, I appreciate your comments, and I kind of share your view that tennis and pickleball are good sports. So don't think that we're going to push that away. I think that as we move forward with parks planning, that is something that we're looking to accommodate most likely. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Anybody else?
Michelle, this is George Mooseburner. Can I speak about the skate park, or should I wait till the end?
If you can, we are in a little bit of a tough time, so I don't want to tell you not to speak. I would love you to speak, George. I don't even know you're here. Hello. And if you could speak to it in ways that try not to sort of duplicate what Andres just said, and provide your additional comments, that would be super helpful.
Okay, I'll keep it quick. Plus, there's no plan for me to really question at this point. But my perspective is different because if I look out my left-hand side to that window, I can see the tennis courts. So I live on Conway, 114 Conway. I and my neighbors and the folks on Windsor will hear the skateboard park, will suffer any ill effects of the skateboard park. So I'm very interested in the operating plan, specifically the noise and the noise reduction. So I do appreciate you're looking into insulation for that equipment. That I think would be very valuable. I also think it might be worth considering leaving one tennis court there for the tennis players and to give separation between the park and the folks on Conway and the rest of the borough. I'm also looking forward to sort of the plan and specifically enforcement of the plan. I think about things like, what are the hours going to be? Who will open it up? Who will close it down? Will there be supervision? Who will make sure that people are wearing helmets? How will things operate? So I realize that you don't have a plan yet, so you can't answer this, but those are the kind of things that I and my neighbors are concerned about and think about. So we appreciate your thinking about that too.
Thank you, George. I appreciate your comments. Okay.
One point of information on that.
Sure.
So Parks and Rec is the one that's going to be drafting those rules. They have to come back here, right? But they're doing the drafting. Is that the plan?
I think the Smith is going to reach out to them and see if that's still their intention. And if not, we may need to, if they've got the time and the,
depending on, I mean, obviously, I think this committee wants to give appropriate, deference to the Parks and Rec committee and giving them the first bite at that.
Okay.
And then depending on how that comes back, this committee will be involved as much or as little as we need to be.
So segue from there to the operating hours of Borough Parks, which I believe Parks and Rec did address last week, and we have it here as a potential action item. I haven't seen a written, I don't know, I mean, obviously we don't have anything to move forward as an action item today, but maybe a status check if you happen to know where. I mean, I did look at the agenda and I saw, their draft, then they were considering certain fees and operating hours, I guess. I guess that's together with the fees, maybe not. But, we're just talking about operating hours, not fees here.
Yeah, we're just talking about operating hours because
we're gonna figure that out.
yeah, so operating hours, just a quick refresher for everyone. So council, passed the ordinance and resolution establishing rules for the park. The question about park hours was left kind of open for future consideration.
What did we say? Did we say dawn to dusk except for related areas? Like
We did, yeah, and that's what the signs say.
Okay.
But I thought I could remember there's some conversation on council of wanting to revisit dawn to dusk.
Oh. I felt like we resolved that, put it in the resolution and moved on. But what is your?
Say that's how the committee feels, man. That's all we have.
Let's just, maybe we could just ask Bob. I have a memory, maybe Bob might have had a different opinion, but I thought most people did agree on the.
Well,
I'm not. I don't.
Here's what I would say.
I just
guess my
rewatched that
thing is unless two of the three members of this committee want to move forward with anything with that, otherwise, I'd let it go. I mean, I think the main challenge at staff level that we run into with dawn to dusk is for maintenance in the morning. That can occasionally be tricky, especially throughout the year, whenever dawn and dusk is kind of changes. So at certain times of the year, dawn can be kind of difficult for the borough staff to do if they need to do with people already doing stuff out there.
okay.
And then, again, going back to when we talked about the buffer, anytime there's a rule or regulation that doesn't have like a hard number associated with it, it does make it more difficult for enforcement.
Okay.
So,
Did you have a recommendation?
yeah, I mean, if you would prefer.
There we go. So I would say, I would say that daylight savings time kind of already takes care of some of the changes in the sun throughout the year. So I would just say we set it, I defer to Jeff as to what the morning requirement would be, but I would say something like, you just said me, unofficially, just kind of throwing a number out there, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Except for the lighted areas.
7 a.m.
I mean, does that make sense? With 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
public works some time to get out there and do mowing and all that.
I'm 7 p.m. seems very early. Sometimes of the year it may be late until. Right?
Well, yeah, that's why this
Chasing
dawn
people off, so-
till dusk thing is
Yeah.
just tied to the light
But
as
then there's
opposed
some
to
ambiguity.
Yeah.
I know, but-
But 7 a.m.
So I mean,
7
we could
a.m.
also, I mean, I'd be
tied to
open,
sundown or whatever.
I'd be open to, I'd be open maybe just putting a morning barrier on it, you know, maybe 7 a.m. until dusk, you know, because I guess all meant for the borough, you know, the morning part is probably more important than the night part.
But I mean, it's not like it's locked, right?
No, that's, I mean, I'll admit, yeah, it's,
Not
yeah.
like what?
It's not locked.
No, it's
Sure.
not locked. Yeah, I mean, if I were throwing out there, say like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah, okay, I mean, I'd be fine with
Only
that. We said
because-
7 a.m. to 9
I mean,
p.m.
people work, except under lighted areas, basketball later than 9 p.m. if we leave the lights on that long, which we probably won't. 'cause
No, we,
control over the lights, so it's,
Yeah, I think we leave the lights on what, until 10, I want to say.
They were just changed to, I think, 9.
Because of how early, because of, yeah.
Yeah, but now, see what's gonna happen is the leagues are both gonna be running this summer, so you have to leave it on until at least the league games.
Right.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m. except under lighted areas.
Yeah, they're, okay,
Or
7 a.m.
we had, whatever the language in the resolution was, it wasn't just lighted areas, there's
Right.
some specific thing that Bob came up with.
But you all will be fine with maybe changing dusk, at least the dusk to dawn
Yeah,
part from 7 a.m.
Yeah, I think it's a lot clearer to just have hours throughout. People argue, it's not dusk yet. So it's like, why put
Yeah, and I think
you in a position
also,
of arguing?
as we move forward, we're trying to develop rules for renting the park out as well.
Mhm.
I think that's as well, where those defined hours to be really important.
Okay. All right, so we're moving on to Borough Projects. You provided us with a great memo. I don't have any questions about its, well, I might have a question about the bike pilot, but the other ones are pretty clear cut. You just a memo that sort of, and it's in the packet for anybody, member of the public who's interested, and sort of tells where we are in the process of each of these. If nobody else has questions, I have questions.
I do have a comment about the bike pilot, and this is just out of ignorance. What is the process when the bike pilot ends for evaluating it?
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is, so again, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence here, just making sure the public and everyone here is on the same knowledge base. So the borough has a planning commission, there's the county planning commission, and then there's a regional planning commission. So the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission provided us with some monitoring equipment to gauge the number of bikes and such that have been used in that area. So I think part of what we're going to do is look at the data about how much use it actually got. I think we're going to take a look at things as to what the impact on vehicular speed from it was in terms of traffic calming. I think beyond that, it's not going to be as much hard data. It's going to be more like anecdotally, I have noticed, a little bit more traffic that I think I mentioned in the memo, a little bit more traffic back up at Wynwood and Haverford, for example. There've been, the parking impact hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be, but I think that's also because there isn't really much going on right now.
That I was actually going to ask, if you don't mind me just jumping in to ask a question. Right now, the bike pilot is slated to end when the stormwater project begins, and that's kind of a whenever. So I'm wondering, will we actually get a fair test of the impact of this bike lane on parking for sports in the park? Because it is kind of like, it's a big question for people. We have to.
Well, I think in a certain sense, I defer a little bit to Eric, the borough engineer, Eric Johnson, on this, but my understanding of the stormwater project is this basically going to take up about the same area of Haverford that the bike pilot currently occupies.
Okay.
So people won't be able to park there during the day. So,
A simulated test.
There you go.
yeah. I mean, Eric, in terms of road blockage or closure on Haverford, it's basically to the stormwater thing. It's only the same area as the bike lane, pretty much, right?
So from the intersection running along the park, the new storm sewer is going to be on the park side. Well, for basically along the baseball field, and then it will jump over to the track side of the road as you get closer to the culvert. During the course of construction, it's not like the whole thing's going to be shut down. It'd still be opening up a section, working on it, closing it, and moving the way down the road. So there will be obstructions while we're doing it, but it's not going to be like a complete road closure. But it is going to, it is going to complicate things going on in the area. So we don't want to have the bike lane going at the same time as we have active traffic and parking and biking.
My point is, in other words, if the bike lane goes away before spring sports start because we're doing this, stormwater, we never really have a fair chance to see how much impact it has on people's.
Right, and I can just point out also, if you were to continue the bike, so once the storm sewer project is done, the road's going to look essentially as it did before. So you'll just have your same road back, and you could continue a pilot or whatever else the borough wants to do at that point, once construction's done.
Yeah, but it'll probably be done after the sports season.
I don't know. Well, one question.
Right, yeah, construction will be in the spring, so, right.
Well, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Jeff, I just wondered, because we talked about this in December, about what would happen in the event that we had a snowstorm with the hay bales. And I know we had some discussion about how we would try to see if some of the community groups that have urged this pilot are going to be able to help actually get them out of the way. I don't think we're ever going to get snow this winter at this point, but still it could. I mean, is there a plan for getting them out of the way and that's not too onerous? And I just want us to make sure we have those bases covered.
Yeah, so I had just.
I think they're calling for snow on Friday, Saturday.
Well, I'm hoping, I hear it's going to go up and New England's going to get all the beautiful snow. Well, once again, you're going to be left with the rain. We'll see.
I think the question is the point to put them back. I'm sure you'll move them so you can plow. The question is
One way or the other, yeah.
And there was a newest step up to help with that effort. No, okay,
So the 2 times here that we actually have had to plow snow, we just plowed snow up against it, and the bike lane has been covered in snow until it's gone.
That's good. Okay. All right. Anything else on ongoing borough projects? Questions, updates that you want to share? Okay. I have nothing else. Unless there's anybody, member of the public, who wishes to make comment and has not already done so. Going once. I said who has not already done so, Andre.
I want to say about something basketball. I don't know how these lights are working, but some days it's raining, for example, and it's still lights on, okay? Somebody's checking when do you need the lights, when you don't need the lights for the basketball court.
I think they're just on a timer, aren't they?
They're on a very old school timer, to where it's all or none. It's not the type of timer that we can adjust to be on, in certain conditions. Sun is just on at 7 o'clock.
I'm just thinking, well, maybe some way the technology is working better ways today. You can use kind of technology to see if it's raining. Like Carl, for example, started cleaning the window when it's raining, then the lights go off when it's raining or something like this. But you guys, you're better in technology. I'm not so
good. No, you're right. I mean, like the street lights in the borough, they have a photo still in them that detects, how much sunlight there is.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure at some point we could do something similar with the lights at the courts.
Yeah.
But that actually brings up a slightly different question, because I don't know, they're probably pretty old. Those lights are probably not super energy efficient. Yeah. Right, so that's another potential we could do, because I think we're at the point with LEDs where you could make them bright enough
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then it kind of doesn't matter if they're on or not, because they'll probably be like 5 times as efficient as what's up there now.
Well, maybe
So-
when we do the parks plan, and then maybe we need for other lit areas, for example, tennis courts, if you live there, it's a good time to put that on the list of things to visit, upgrading the lighting in the parks and our control of the lighting in the parks and our ability to control it more sensitively to the conditions. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But even if you didn't turn them off, there were LEDs, it would be such a huge savings.
Oh, that too, without a doubt.
Hi, Michelle, this is George again. If I can make one more comment after the discussion about hours. One thing I've been thinking about is with the skateboard park, who's going to lock it up? Whatever the hours are, who's going to lock it?
Yeah, those are funny. Those are the exact sort of things we're going to talk about the operating plan. I think that's a fantastic question.
Okay.
Yep, it is. It's got to be part of the plan.
But
We need to have somebody available who's going to do it.
the hours of the skateboard park can be different from, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure the hours in the skateboard,
Okay.
or I'm sure that the hours that I am going to go out on a limb here and say, they will be less, they will be much truncated. They will not be coterminous with the park hours.
Okay.
That would
If
not-
you
I
need
think
some
that would be
volunteers, my
appropriate.
wife, is ready to do some job. She's looking for job.
Well, I do have a
seriously.
comment, if I may.
Sure, can I get your, I don't know how to spell can you spell your name?
The whole thing, you'll be here all afternoon. It's Peterson, like him.
Okay.
Diana Peters.
Diana, oh, come on, I can spell that.
How about,
No, don't say the middle name.
how
No,
about
not the middle name.
Franzuzova? How do you do with that? That's my real name.
Franzuzova.
So, I mean,
Diana. Yeah.
Okay.
yes, Diana, what is your comment? Thank you.
No, my comment was more about how the interaction with the neighborhood will be measured. Is there a measure of success? How many people benefit from one thing or another? I mean, I think Narberth itself brings a lot of joy and happiness to a whole lot of people. So how does the joy quotient go up or down with anything that is new, that's provided for in this community? It's a wonderful community.
I think it's funny. I
Yeah,
think that's something that, in the recommendations that I make to our elected officials and the decisions that our elected officials make. I think you're absolutely right that that's kind of the calculus that goes into any decision is who all will benefit from the decision, who might not benefit or might, I won't go so far as to say hurt, but who may not like the decision and what is overall best for the community. And I think you're absolutely right. And that can be a difficult thing, to judge and gauge sometimes. But I certainly think that's what we're definitely trying to do. Yeah.
But I think also, one of the things you're starting to see in Narberth is these experiments, these pilots. We have a lot of passionate people here who come up with ideas. And
Yeah.
so rather than just dismissing them or saying it's never going to work, we try it and then we see. And
Absolutely.
they don't all necessarily need to be continued.
Right.
Or they can be, if they are popular, they can go on. So I think that's a great test. And that's what happened with the skate park. It's that the tennis courts, it's going to take a while to really fix those. So in the meantime, let's see how it works.
No, I think what's really important is having a board like you listens to all kinds of comments and then bring them to your own attention and see what is good common sense or profitable in one sense or another, and let it go from there and give things a trial run. And I think that's the perfect answer for the whole skate park issue. We don't live in Narberth currently, so gosh, this tells how old I am, but years ago, I was on the board, the Narberth board. And I remember issues like this coming up all the time. So it's really important to have the ability to look back and to look forward and to see what the now is, and to try to get as much community input as possible, because then you really know what people hope for from this very identifiable small community, which is so different. Can't be so unique. I hate when people say so unique.
Thank you.
I also teach English.
That reminds me, actually, I want to promote for, anyone who watches this recording or wants to know, with the bike pilot, there is a survey for that.
Right.
So I encourage anyone who hasn't done the survey to do the survey. And I would encourage us for the skate park pilot, when we do that, to have a survey as well for people to be able to submit comments.
I was going to say the same thing. So it really does, that is a more democratic between that and the direct feedback we get at meetings and just our casual conversations on the street, and then being able to observe behavior. We get a lot of data, different data points. I hope it informs decision.
But look what happened with the outdoor dining. That was an experiment.
Yeah.
COVID-induced experiment.
I think
But then, it worked out, but then there were some comments, and then it got turned into a real ordinance. So
All right. So
anyway, we're done.
let's turn it over. We can continue talking, but I am going, unless anybody else has a specific meeting, I'm going to call the meeting over, and then we can continue an informal conversation. Right? So to do that. Okay.